Hi, hello everybody. I am Suhavi and I'm here with Mr. Mustafa Nazar, the CEO, the founder and CEO of Manufactory AI. He's here to tell us about how he has made investing easier for all of us. Um, and I believe he's doing something really great. So, Mustafa, let's start with something. Tell us something about yourself.
Thank you so much, Suhavi. It's a pleasure to be here with Maker's Part. And Money Factory is essentially, a quantitative investing platform. See, if you look at investing, per se, it's a very complex thing, right? So if you have to invest, there comes a lot of questions: where to invest, how do I start to invest, and how do I mean? It's basically, the list goes on, and that's essentially we see that a lot of people make a lot of mistakes. But if you look at the problems which are exactly there into the industry, is that people know how to invest, people know where to invest, but essentially when to invest is a $1 billion question, right? So what essentially we are solving at Money Factory is when to invest through advanced AI technology. So how we have integrated AI technology is that, so we have created cons which are basically which remove all the human biases. So if you look at it like if you were to start off and start building, you do that over a recurring process, so it's a repetitive task, right? You start, everybody starts investing small, and then they double down on it, and it so happens that after a point in time, but the problem is that after reaching a certain point in time there is extreme volatility. How do you handle volatility? So what our cons do is they make your journey very easier. Starting, if a person who doesn't know anything about investing comes to our platform or downloads our app, and he opens a demat account and sets up a mandate, what essentially our cons do is that they invest into the right stocks at the right time in a repetitive process. So that way you don't really do anything. You sit back and relax, let our tech handle things for you while we curate wealth for you. So that's in a
Wow, wow.
nutshell what Money Factory does.
That is very interesting. So tell me, how did you get into something like this? What did you do before this, and how did you, yes, get into something like this?
Yeah, very interesting question. I passed out, I mean, I'm a computer science engineer. I passed out in 2009. We were at the crux of the recession when we got out. So we had a lot of offers, but apparently they were not, up to the mark. But, I had always that problem to solve something, through technology. Since I had background in computers, I took various courses, understood what finance is all about, and the biggest euphoric moment happened when I joined Reliance Securities. In back here in India, Reliance is something like the YC here. So it's basically like, if you want to understand how things work, how the industry is, want to understand the market and all of that. So it's a very nice place to be. So back in 2011, I got into Reliance, and basically I was seeing the stock markets having a lot of people investing, and that was a regular process. Some people were making money, some people were losing money. So it was basically like but back end, while we were sitting, it was basically like we used to see how people are like, same person is buying and other person is selling, but end result was that a lot of people lost a lot of money. But that wasn't necessarily had to be the reason. So this was like led me to deep dive into it, then understood the markets at a macro level. That was when basically like the technology, it was a very nascent stage. So there were times when opening up account to get started, if you want to start investing today, it's a different story, but way back about 10 12 years, just for you to start investing, it would take roughly about 30 days. And those 30 days, it was a total chaos. So that was when my background in tech essentially helped, and I was very well versed with what computer programs were and how we could automate those tasks. So that then a couple of research, and then understood how things could be solved. So I started writing algorithms, so that it was basically like investing is a 0 and 1 game, right? Either you buy, somebody is buying, or somebody is selling. So there's nothing apart from that. And the basic foundation of computers is also that, right? It is the binary language. So since it was a binary language, started to write programs. One, I wrote programs, and I presented to my seniors that this could essentially be done. So it was like, okay, you could do that, but how can this be scalable? Because there were a lot of issues then. So but I went on with it. It was basically like the program started working fine. Then we had to I worked there for about 3 years, gained extensive knowledge, and by the time I rose in the ranks of Reliance. While I quit Reliance in 2014, I almost had about 300 odd crores of portfolios I was managing. So basically, there were certain early adopters who wanted, because this problem has been there in the industry and it will continue to be there in the industry for a very, very long time to come. So I presented what my theses were, how this problem could be solved, and where we could expect efficiency into the investments. So that was when few early adopters believed in me. I started a small quant firm, which where we set up some of the accounts. Then we also created certain softwares which were not there. So it was basically like uh, a deep learning. As we were learning, industry also started to essentially grow. So after about 3 years, in 2017, we essentially built a platform which could simultaneously handle investments for a couple of people at a time. And post that, the biggest push happened was after the API started to come. So during COVID, the world essentially went back, and
Yeah.
most of the industry people were like, okay, we got to do something. But since we were doing that, and because investing is a complex process, you have to work within the regulatory ambit. There are exchanges, there are brokers, there are users, and essentially there are decisions what people essentially have to make. So it's a deep tech. We had to curate and compile it into a very small application so that everything works in tandem. So the APIs happened, and after that, the tech really started to pick up.
Sorry,
There
sorry
were
to interrupt you. What is API?
API is an application programming interface. So
Okay.
if any particular application has to function, there needs to be an API. So without API is apparently it works on various ways. So it's like because it is three places, right? One is at the client level, one is at a broker level. A broker is a person who essentially manages your entire trades. Like if you want to buy something, there has to be an interface. Then that has to get communicated with the exchange. So what the biggest thing what happened was, earlier we were doing all of this manually, because we had to have three servers which could essentially pass on. But with once we got, it was like a plug and play for us. Like APIs came, we pushed in, then we ramped up on the technology, understood how we could solve problems for a majority of the users. And after that, it has been a continuous learning journey for us. And then again, way back in 2022 23, when ChatGPT came in, people were like, okay, AI can do things. But back then, we had built a very solid foundation, for roughly about 5 years, where we rigorously tested, understood how things were, and what essentially people need. Everybody needs money, everybody wants their investments to grow, but they need to be patient, right? So it cannot
Yeah.
just happen that AI cannot solve for wealth creation. It's about putting in the right practices. So our tech was able to solve for user experience as well. So that way is how we transitioned, and Manufactory came into existence, and we got a lot of industry support in terms of what we were doing, a lot of validation through majority of the established players into the market, because everybody is looking to solve this complex problem, and there is no
Yeah, yeah.
single way to solve this problem, right? Because it has always been that there are ups and downs. People need to essentially glide through them.
So, what were the most significant challenges that you faced while building this?
The first thing was technology, because less than 3-4% people understand technology. while it was all, and innovation is something, people don't look at you, in a very positive way. It's always looked down, right? People always are like, we had a lot of challenges in terms of, convincing the intermediaries, because being in a regulatory environment, we just can't build something and say that okay, this can be done, because there are rules, and finance is the most regulated industry. It was first to, and it was basically like, there were various questions which were asked that okay, this can happen, people can just like, isn't this thing like, a lot of people can get carried away with, there would be like you could, how would you evolve? So few questions like that, and basically first thing was gaining people's trust. It's like anybody has to trust you with your money. You need to build, credibility there. So that was, to build credibility, and say that okay, the technology can really solve your problem, right? So it
Yeah.
like, if you were to look like in 2012, there was no Uber in India, or there was no Zomatos which were doing food. People had just no idea about okay, things were possible. But as technology started developing, and people understood that, so we gained traction among our early adopters. We went back and pitched into some of the people who were established into the industry, like how, because see, investment management is basically, the biggest problem is the statistics say that more than 95% people lose money. Why do they lose money? Is because of the the human nature is like that. So it is like they say, right? It is simple things people don't understand, they want to complicate things. So under this, it was all that, I'm making them understand that it's a binary function, it's a repetitive task, and all you have to do is just stay focused, making people believe in you. And that was, to overcome those, and let people see the bigger picture. So that was, we overcame them, and then apparently when we released our app, people were like, okay, is this possible? Can this quant do this for me? I don't have to do anything. So that was one. So then we had to make them understand that how exactly is technology to be used. See, there are certain things. If you look at it like a central server, our nervous system controls everything. What we have to do is give it the right thoughts, on the right right thinking. If we have the right thinking, it's basically that things will work your way. So that was to make people understand that was the biggest challenge. We are fortunate enough that we are living in an AI revolution, right now, and people are able to understand things in a very very micro level. So that way we have like essentially what we did was after that. So we are among the first of the startups who have apparently like broken down, and our service customers, or like our target audience is broken down into two. One is people who understand the markets, right, and one are people who don't understand the markets. For them, we have broken down into micro investors who are beginners. People like you and me also can be beginners. We could just like start our journey, because it's a 0 to 1 journey, and 1 to 10, and 10 to 100, like that. So for them, we have a separate focus, and for people who understand markets, for them it is basically like we put the complex procedures into very simple instructions. So that.
So tell us, what has been the most satisfying moment in your business?
Yeah, very good question, Swavi. The most satisfying moment has been customer validation. While we presented the technology for the users, it was the users accepted that with great, with great enthusiasm. They were like wanting to try the technology. For a founder, it is always the best part is you might create something, but until and unless it doesn't get validated, and people don't look into it, it is it's always like there's a lot of gray area there. But while we bought this technology, gave it to our users, and while users felt that okay, this could transition, and really the product does walk the talk, it was like and people started to give us their money. They started investing. They started majority of the other investors put in bigger chunks of money, and the results were very overwhelming. And to see that that has been the greatest satisfying moment. And most of it, then apart from that, it was also the other, early adopters and also the people who have been into the industry, the dominant players, right? So while we went to them and we showcased our product, it was like, it was like, okay, yes, this is something really great, right? So that was like, a pat on our back that, okay, gave us 10x more energy to go out there and understand I mean, as we understood the problem, it was basically like to solve and make it more easy for users. See, like we want like how Uber has made people getting into cabs very easy, because there were a lot of people who couldn't afford to get into a car, right? So it's the same as with investments. So here, well, we did, even with the lower income group people, they saw certain results and they came out with stories. Some even dropped into our offices and some of the user interviews when we did. So like, it was just that, we were like supercharged.
Okay. Of course. And also, everybody investing so much in AI, believing in AI is a very big deal for our society right now. So for a company like yours,
Absolutely.
yeah, so for a company like yours, uh, what would be your key values and how do you ensure that it is upheld?
See, in terms of our key values is customer experience, right? So until and unless you're not able to give a superior experience to the users, the product essentially is like not fully developed. So what we essentially ensured is that we solved the problems through AI, and some of our AI models and also our ML models have been able to give a top-notch experience. And these values are upheld by data, because it is basically like without data you are in a dark room, right? Data gives you the way to walk through. So that has like helped us in building a very strong foundation and distribute the same thing across our users. And on top of it, like we have worked extensively to make people understand how things work for them, what they need to be doing, what they shouldn't be doing. Our major focus has been that bad eliminate those bad habits. And while seeing that people stick on to it, and that has essentially we that is how we ensure that our values are to give experience to our users, plus things don't go here and there, right? So because it is basically, if people, if looking at an e-com or something else, it is always people have, you cannot always have a very good CSAT score. But with tech, we have been able to eliminate that and ensure that seamless service has been given to our users. And
That's
this is the way where we ensure that our we stand for what we advocate.
That's great, actually. So, I have two questions for you now. One
Mhm.
is, how do you define success for yourself and your business? And a second one related to it, which is, how do you handle adversity and doubt?
Thank you. Very good question again. So, in terms of handling success, what is success? Success is impacting lives, right? If you are able to change the way people have, evolution is the key, right? So, in terms of we are evolving every single day, while our customers and our clients see that, and we have made impact on their lives, they are able to get a better ROI on their investment. So it is like man has been driven by greed. So everybody, because greedy people, most of the times they're always greedy. They don't some make it, some don't essentially make it. But while putting in certain processes and impacting lives, seeing a larger impact on their lives has been the greatest satisfying moment. So in terms of adversity, there has always in business, there has always been adversity, because there are new people who keep coming in. There are people who doubt. And so what we essentially ensured is that how do we handle that is through a data driven approach. So while, and we are just like the middlemen, ensuring that we just advocating, do this is the right thing to do. But whereas our tech is something which does the talking. So that way we are like, we don't essentially show a very rosy picture, but rather, how can, the journey be rewarding. So we ensure, things like that happen to people, and, lives are impacted, and a great deal is made out of that.
Yeah, yeah, I'm sure it has. And in the past few years, since you've been leading this company, has there ever been a situation where a failure has later become a success or a valuable lesson? And if yes, would you like to share something with us?
Absolutely. In terms of the failure was while we scaled the technologies, how do we deliver it to users in a very seamless way? So there were various breakdowns because in terms of while we were able to build certain, it was basically like, if you understand, it's a pyramid. So the top of it sits the exchange, and then there is an intermediary, and then there are users. And in between lies our layer. So to ensure there is a seamless experience, we had to, like, there was times when we early started, way back in 2021, 2022, it was that we were not able to scale the technology because there were various reasons. So this had led us, to self-doubt. Okay, we did something very ambitious, but is it possible to deliver this to people in a very seamless way, right? So that we upscaled, and then, we brought in some of the, we got many of the other tech guys. We revamped our infrastructure in such a way that, and moved everything to the cloud. So that was one particular thing, which was a drawback, but that laid a very strong foundation for us to, build something which cannot collapse. Like there is, we have, right until now, we have had around 99%, 98% of, service delivery. We haven't have don't have many of the users who are unhappy with us. But in terms of what we deliver, it is seamless, very very seamless. There might be certain times when there are, some outrages. So like many of the global companies have at least about 3 to 5% certain times where they are upgrading, and, there is downtime. So, but we have ensured that out of the 24 hours, while we function for 8 hours, our servers function for 8 hours, we've been able to give them a very good service. And tech and basically connectivity has not been an issue.
Okay. So I understand that you ensured that there was a strong foundation and you built from there. So
Absolutely.
having since you're in the field of like since you're using AI, uh, and AI is continuously evolving and it's a dynamic field, how do you ensure and like foster innovation and creativity within your organization?
So in terms of, like, while our foundation model remains the same, we are building on top of the use cases. So there are various use cases because as human beings, we have different wants and needs. So while those are there, so first we started with micro investing, and then like, there are various other use cases, like in terms of institutions. There are various other intermediaries in between, and there are high net worth individuals. So what we are essentially fostering an environment of innovation by understanding the use cases at a micro level and curating products in such a way that, they impact lives.
Yeah, yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And so what is the long-term vision of your company?
Thank you. Very good question again. So we essentially want, our long-term vision is that the statistics are 95% of the users are not able to make money because of some stupid and foolish reasons. Whereas, being a binary game, right? We want to ensure that, the major that number drops down significantly. So possibly bring that down to, so we want to ensure, set a, a big, a better benchmark and a service standard that users of Moneyfactory, 95% of them are making money, whereas maybe 5% who are not following things, are just like you have that headweight that I know it all, are not making money. So we want to, ensure that this technology, the way things have to be done, simple things are, led, are distributed to across the spectrum, irrespective of, their income classes, whether it is a small person who is just starting to put in like about 100 rupees to a person who wants to even put in $1 million, right? So that way we want to ensure that innovation stays with us, and we help people and impact lives, because that is the biggest gratification as a founder can have. While people are able to do that, and if wealth can be compounded, there are like, if right, why we even started it in India is because we see that there is big disparity among the people, right, in terms of what income levels are there. While impacting in India and building in India and then building for the world is something we want to. This success in India can mean great things, because India is at that global stage right now where everybody is watching, right? So that is something like we want to ensure that first we solve for India, then move abroad, and ensure people make some very good amount of money.
Yeah, and India's market size is also very large, and the youth population is also largest among the world. So it makes sense to start with
Absolutely,
India. Something else. Yeah.
absolutely.
So yeah. So over the years, how would you describe your leadership style, and how do you cultivate team culture within your organization?
Well, back when, very good question again. Back when I started, when back when I was with Reliance, and after that, I had a couple of stints at Maruti Suzuki as well. So my bosses trusted me with something like, this is your problem. We have given you the charge. It's up to you. How do you solve it, right? So that was something what I inculcate when I hire people. So it is basically to first do my assessment in a way that to understand whether it's the skill which is required or it's a will issue. So if it is a will issue, I ensure that maybe like we set certain benchmarks. If they are not, they are we move them into something else. But whereas a person who wants to learn, the biggest thing is trusting in him and empowering him. So what I essentially ensure is that I empower my teammates with whatever it is, whether it is in terms of knowledge, whether it is in upskilling them, taking them through complex problems, understanding their style, and making sure that they stick on to it. And while they are empowered as a leader, what I could do is inspire them, right? So this is something right. You got to focus on this, and we see that people who really want to understand and do great things take that challenge, and they always exceed expectations. So that was in terms of the first part of your question. And can you, if you don't mind, can you just repeat the second part of the question which you have?
My second part of the question was, how do you cultivate team culture?
So in terms of team culture is that right, it's empowerment. While it is, we cannot, and no single individual can solve a problem. So that is while we inculcate that into our aspiring leaders, our we have various divisions in terms of tech division, that's consumer division. So it is basically like to make them feel valued, that you are important. It is because of you that we are able to give a better service. So that empowerment is like they get thumbed up, and they are able to do things in a much better way. So that's how I essentially ensure that is the team stays motivated. So it is not about like things didn't happen the right. There's always like things don't go the way they are planned to go. But with constant, if the focus is there, and the right people are inspiring the teammates, and that again gets down to the second layer and the third layer. We always ensure that we work as a family, because there are good times, there are bad times, so many things happen, but family stays strong. So inculcating that culture and make them feeling valued is something like builds a very strong team bonding.
Yeah, yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And again, with your strong foundation and empowering your team members, it will lead to like a successful and bright future for your organization as well, hopefully.
I hope so, truly expecting that, and we always ensure that whether it is less big or small. It is humans have to be valued, because if you are valued, you would go out of your way to do things just to make sure that, okay, it is that I wasn't, that I am not, why my boss is doing something, why should I do that? But if everybody has, things equally, we are human beings, right? So we inculcate that. First thing is human values. We never I mean, no, there is no discrimination in terms of whether we have, office associates or even the person who gives us tea. He also feels that he's a part of it, that, he is contributing to it. So that is something, like, will always ensure that, irrespective, and most of the organizations I have seen that, there is disparity among the classes. If a person is doing some job which is non-technical in nature, you are not important. That when a person gets that feeling, it so happens that, he's demotivated. Why should, when God has created everybody equally, why should we discriminate, right? So that is one culture in us, that, we always empower our people. We always want to ensure that, they do their best, because if they do their best, our jobs are very easy. As leaders, we can always, maybe, give some smaller feedback about things, do things this way, or maybe, do it in another way. But his the kind of enthusiasm what he would show while he is, charged, no person can match that, because he's giving his best.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. And so now, Mustafa, I would like to ask you some questions about you. So tell us something that influenced you into this line, like a book or a mentor or an event that influenced you into this journey.
Absolutely. My biggest inspiration has been Jim Simmons. Unfortunately, we lost him just about a couple of weeks back. So my journey has been in a way that, complex problem, mathematics. I was very good in mathematics. Back in my school days, I had won various Olympiads there. So is that was once I read what Jim Simmons went through, right? That was like, a euphoric moment for me, because it was all about getting things right. So it takes time to, evolve how things work. And seeing his journey of, in academia, then setting up his own fund, losing his money, then again, coming up, bouncing up, because there are ups and downs. But while you essentially, gain a foundation, and you can build on top of that foundation. So it was Jim Simmons who essentially taught me that, you have to always be the Chinese bamboo tree story. Like we all know about that. The foundation has to go deep within. It takes about 5 years for the Chinese bamboo tree to just, spread its roots, stand strong. And in the next 90 days or so, it shoots up to more than 100 meters. So that's exactly what we did, because I always believed, while during my journey, there were a lot of times we ran out of money, because while I started, I always thought that, okay, it is okay. It is a simple problem. We have cracked it. We can scale it. But that was not the way. There were so many problems. There were so many things which came up, unexpected things came up, and solving them was like, always you need to get some inspiration. And with a man who has delivered more than, 36% on a monthly basis, on an annual basis for 60 years, is something, which is very tremendous. So that was a very defining moment for me. And, have read that book 4 5 times. How can, mathematics, because it's a numbers game, you have to solve those numbers game in your mind before you can, make people understand that. Why? Because there's only one thing which cannot cheat is numbers. Because if you are making up numbers, there is some particular way you will have to, make some adjustments. But while mathematics as a whole has been the foundation for majority of the things, in the world today. So that was Jim Simmons for me. And then, great inspiration, and great, he built a very great company and made his investors rich. There were times when, always you do something for people, they always are happy. If things don't go, they are unhappy. There were times for him. So it was basically like, always took it with a pinch of salt. Well, we were, in our research phase, we validated that. how important is validation. That was something. And then while we started even building bonds, it was all for the very elite, right? So there are roughly, like, I can tell you that even today, speaking about bonds, quantitative finance, and mathematics into finance and all of that is basically less than 1% people understand. It's a very complex subject. So that way, while I'm just making that complex subject very accessible for the user. And I could even tell that Manufactory today is a little, at least 2 years ahead of its time, since our product is, people would take some more time to understand, because it is just at this time that the other see, there has always been concentration. Like, out of the 5% of the people are making money because they are sitting with complex tools, they have mastery over the market and various other things which have essentially led them to create wealth. But for the 95% of the people, they still feel that there is a problem which is existing into the market. Okay, the market is not right. We see that there are a lot of people who commit suicides because they were not able to do things the right way, various things like that. But understanding the game, how the game is being played, and putting in a level playing field is gives me tremendous satisfaction. And I never had the opportunity to meet him, though I was once in New York, but couldn't go meet him. But yet, great influence Renaissance technology has helped us in shaping up what it is. And hopefully in the coming years to go, we will bring this out to many of the people who actually deserve to make certain moolah from the market. So,
Yeah, that's great. And so tell us, what are the most critical skills that as an entrepreneur one should know?
is as an entrepreneur, the first thing is he needs to inspire his team. Without inspiring and taking, it is always one man can go a short distance, but if you need to go a long distance, right, you need to have your crew with you. So the crew has to, like, be energized. You need to match in the same frequency. In the very early stages of the career, it is very essential to to understand whether your team is going to stick on with you for a longer time. Providing them that environment so that they also grow is something which is very essential for an entrepreneur. Today, I mostly see that many of the entrepreneurs are like, okay, I have done this, this is your job. They go into the dictator style. This is what it is, hire and fire people. So it's basically like, we what we do at Manufactory is we let people come to our office for almost 2 weeks. We say, you see how things are working, whatever you want to do, just understand, you like this, okay. And before we could onboard them, we have like an induction. So that gives them the the mind space for them to see what it is life is going to be here.
Mm.
So for this first 2 weeks, like, they are able to see the culture, what is the growth opportunities they have, what is their care, the core KRA, what they need to focus on, what exactly is their job. So it is basically that for the first 2 weeks, we are very friendly with them. And then post that is when we release our offers. So this is something like, I implemented that, and that has essentially helped the organization and also helped the company in a very very better way. And we have our core team members are around 7 people. So we've been they've been with us for more than 3 years, not a single percent attrition. So that way, I have always ensured that empowerment, and it is more or less and analyzing people, whether it is a skill issue or a will issue. Because people, if can always be upskilled, but people, if they don't like, it's always that we go with that 80-20, right? 80% of the people are just working for the sake of surviving, and 20% people actually matter. So very fortunate that I can say that we have 80 rather. I would rephrase and say that 90% of our people are like, they love what they are doing. They love the problem what we are solving. They're enjoying to work. See, we're still at a very nascent stage of the company. We haven't raised big funds, and salaries are not so massive. But people believe in us. There have been times where we haven't paid them for 2 3 months, but yet there was like the energy never dropped because we always knew that okay, things will shape up. So it is for a leader, it is very, very essential that his team believes in him, and they ensure that it is not about the chain of command, but technically speaking, that it's people believe in you and they do what they are supposed to do, and you don't have to keep telling them again and again to do that. So this exercise of mine before getting them and making sure that what they feel, because most of the companies, it so happens, after you're onboarded, it takes about a month and a half for you to get used to the atmosphere, and then
Yeah.
yeah, and then you feel that, oh no, I'm not the right fit, but still again there is stigma. What should I do? There are complex laws again, notice periods, you have to pay back and all of that. So we say you come with us for 2 weeks, we pay roughly about some kind of money to them, the lunch is on us, we take them onto our brainstorming sessions. So it is basically while a person is coming, he is mentally prepared what he is going to do.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah. He's not scared. He or she is not
He's
scared
not
into. Yeah,
absolutely, absolutely
yeah.
not scared at all.
That is actually a very good solution to a very big problem that a lot of us face whenever we are moving jobs or moving sectors or industries. We need to know what we are getting into before we commit to it. So this is great, actually.
Very, very true. Very true. So this I again learned out of my experience, because there were times when there were certain opportunities came, but it was after a certain point in time, then you realize, see, because getting into a job is like getting into dating, and eventually which leads to marriage, right? So I follow that analogy here. It's like, okay, first get used to us, then possibly we will see, because whether you move on, it's a lot of process, because it takes away too much of your energy. I mean, while you learn, unlearning is very, very difficult, right? You can't
Yeah.
unlearn very, very easily. So that way, it is like, I have given this feedback to a lot of my fellow founders, because at a startup you can implement all of these things, but as you start to grow, it's the
Yeah.
culture which is very, very important. But
Yeah.
as we are like basically a tech driven organization, we ensure our teams are lean, and it really matters that a person is able to give his 100%, because whether you give him whatever money, whatever benefits, whatever other things what he needs, but his enthusiasm, it has to come from within, that you cannot command until and unless he is into it, right?
Yeah. Yeah. That's true. Yeah. So, thank you so much. This has been a very enlightening session for me. Uh, I want to ask you my last question, which is what would you advise anybody who's starting their own company, a young entrepreneur? What would you advise them?
My biggest advice for anybody who is starting up would be to first identify the problem statement. Because until and unless you don't identify the problems, what you are going to solve is like walking in the dark. While you understand the problem, get validation, meet numerous people, meet industry experts. You can have three ideas simultaneously, right? And then see what is what, get to the core of the problem, because understanding the we are in a world which solutions can be built with chat gpt also, right? They
Yeah,
can be built in an hour or maybe in a couple of days, but the problem is something like how uniquely can you solve that problem, and never get into something which is just very, very fashionable, or very, very which looks very flashy, because eventually the business has to make money. So get into something. There are various problems in this world where business can make money over a period of time. If you identify the right problem, bring innovation with it, and get a team which can work in tandem, you can solve bigger problems.
that's great. Thank you. Thank you so much for agreeing to do this interview, Mustafa. Thank you. I
Thank
feel
you,
all of us,
Suhavi. Thank you.
yeah, I
I'm,
think we
I'm,
all
I mean,
learned a
I'm
lot. Yeah. Sorry, please
Thank you so
continue.
much Thank you so much for having me. It's a pleasure, speaking to you, and thank Nichols Bar for this opportunity. And it would be my privilege if this helps anybody, and I hope to get back to you soon.
Yeah, I'm sure it will because here at Makers Bar, we are creating 1 million leaders today for tomorrow. So I know, since I believe in this mission and you believe in this mission, this will help people. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Suhavi. Thank you so much for having me. It's a real pleasure talking to you. Hope to see you soon.
Yeah, see you.
Thank you. Thank you.